or doing interviews. You'll find her with celebrities and all the latest news. She's here, she's there, she's everywhere, she's always on the go. So sit back, relax, and get ready. This is the Corey Taylor Talks Show.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Corey Taylor Talks, live from Las Vegas. I am very excited about my guest today. He is an incredible author. His books are amazing and important. And the research he's done for them is just really out of this world. And I'm just really excited to have him and share his books with you guys, and everything he has coming up. So I have Mr. Bruce Borgos with us. So hi, Bruce. How are you?
Good, Corey. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I am very excited to have you. And like I said, I think you're an amazing guy, and your books are incredible, and you put so much thought and care into them and research, and you make them as realistic and humanized as possible, and I think that's awesome. So,
well, I appreciate that. That's high praise. And this book, The Bitter Past, that came out in July, is doing remarkably well. So I'm really pleased about that. And it's been a really fun journey, and it's continuing. I've got and my next book in the series comes out next July.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's great that you have everything already lined up, and a year after is perfect. So what made you actually want to become an author in the first place? What got you into it?
It's something I really started to develop an interest in probably high school, and did a lot of kind of creative writing there, and continue that in college. I didn't really continue it after that seriously until about 2015. When I started working on my first book seriously, because I had a full-time job like everybody else, and most writers, most authors do. They have real jobs, and because it's not an industry that's easy to get into, easy to break into. So, but the interest has always been there.
Yeah. And now you're here.
And now I'm here.
And now
I finally did it.
You did it. Now, I mean, it's hard. Like you said, like you can want to be an author, and so many people want to be, but to actually get published and stuff is, especially in today's day and age, is almost impossible because everyone's trying to do it. So, what made you finally take that step and finally get the publishing, do everything for it?
So my first two novels, which came out in 2016 and 2018. I self-published, which a lot of authors do now. They kind of start out putting their books out there themselves. I did it on Amazon, which is the bigger platform that authors use typically for self-publishing. But when you do that, you have to do everything yourself. You have to be not only the author, but the marketing person, the publicity person, and that takes a lot of time. So I realized very quickly a couple things. One was that, okay, I've got two books out there. I'm probably good enough to do this. So the first two books were kind of a proof of concept for me. But I realized, I probably can do this if I want to get serious about it. To get serious about it involved getting traditionally published, which this book is. And that involves a whole lot more stuff, because there's really only 4 major publishers left in the world. Now they have a lot of kind of sister and subsidiary companies within them, but there's only 4 major publishers. And to get to a major publisher, you would first have to have a literary agent. And that's a whole nother minefield to traverse and get through. And it's very difficult and very competitive. But I did what anybody does when they really want to get serious about a hobby, and that's study. So I spent a lot of time learning about how publishing works and how to get a literary agent. And then when I had a little bit more time, especially after I left my last real job in 2020 during COVID, I had time to really kind of get into the minutia of that and learn about it. And then I was very fortunate at the same time. Maybe I happened to be in the right place at the right time. But like with anything else, there's probably some luck involved. and I just happened to kind of have this story ready and get it to the right literary agent who was willing to read it and then wanted to represent me, and things kind of fell in place.
Yeah.
So that's how this book actually came about.
No, and I don't think like a lot of people realize like the amount of work it takes, and I don't think you're giving yourself enough. It is a lot of work, and there's a lot of incredible authors out there, and it's almost impossible to get publishing, and they have to self-publish. That's the only way to get their works out. But so the fact that you actually were able to get a publishing deal is incredible and speaks a lot on you. And I mean, you have already been touring all over the place, and you have a very big fan base, and that's incredible for so early in your career with this.
It's like I said, I've been fortunate in that regard. The book's been very well received. I got a lot of great critical reviews and articles in major publications, literary journals before the book came out. So that really kind of continued the hype. But yeah, it's like you said, it is a lot of work. I mean, there's probably there's probably millions of authors out there, or would-be authors, who probably know how to write very well and could write great stuff, but it's not just about being able to write. It's a lot of dedication and a lot of not giving up, because you are going to get rejected. And most of my friends who are authors have been rejected dozens, if not hundreds of times before they actually got something out there, or somebody to represent them, or take an interest in what they were writing. So that part of it is not easy. For me, the writing part is probably the easiest piece of it, because it's something I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of effort. It takes a lot, like anything that you want to be good at, though. Yeah. And it's all really about practice, practice, practice. The more you do, the better you get, right?
Very true.
So, yeah.
And where do you come up with your concept for your books? Like what makes you start like your idea process with them?
As my wife is fond of telling me, I have a very strange brain. And people ask me all the time, where do you come up with these ideas? And the answer, quite honestly, is I'm not sure. For this book, it was a little easier than getting the ideas for my first two books, because this book is, first of all, a story about Nevada, but told in two different timelines. It starts with the present day and the sheriff of Lincoln County, which is just north of here. And he's trying to solve the murder of a retired FBI agent. There's not a lot of murders in Lincoln County, so This is a very strange thing. It's a very gruesome scene. He's trying to solve this case, and that investigation leads him back to the hunt for a Soviet spy who may or may not have been in Nevada working in the 1950s when the government was testing all of these above-ground atomic weapons out in the Nevada desert at the test site.
Right.
And during that decade, we blew up like 100 atomic bombs in the open air, and all sorts of crazy things happened as a result of that. But I always was attracted to that part of our history.
Yeah.
And I knew that I'd love to write a story about that, but then I didn't want to write just a kind of a historical thing. Right. So I thought, okay, I need to find a way to tie that into the present day so people would be interested in that. And that's how I came up with this murder of the FBI agent. And then those two timelines in the book eventually come together as the sheriff kind of solves the initial murder and pieces together all the stuff about the spy 60 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
That's really cool. And I'm a very big history person, and I was born and raised in Vegas. I've always been fascinated with our atomic bomb, everything we've had here in Nevada. So I think it's really cool that you wrote a book with that and made it a murder mystery, which I love. Everyone loves murder mystery, especially now. Everyone loves a good murder mystery.
Right.
So I think it's just such a brilliant idea. And I know you had to do a lot of research for this book. What was the process with that? And I know you talked a lot with, like, I know we had like the Atomic Testing Museum and
Right.
old people, employees. So what was your process with that?
It was a little easier for me whenever you write a story about someplace that's close by. It's a little easier because you can go there.
Right.
So part of my time I spent up in Lincoln County talking to people, interviewing people like the sheriff, getting to know how the sheriff's department works up there as opposed to a police department like in a big city like Las Vegas.
Right.
And getting the lay of the land geographically, getting a visual sense of it so that I could describe that in the book, which is much easier than just Googling stuff and trying to put the pieces together. But then, yeah, as you said, I spent a lot of time at places like the Atomic Testing Museum here in Las Vegas and got into their archives room, their documents room, and started just kind of reading through material. And they have a great staff there who was very helpful to me in pointing out very interesting times during that decade in the 1950s. And then from there, and from talking to those people, I got, and this is a very typical kind of research process where you start researching one thing and that kind of leads you to other people and other things. And that was the same thing here. So the people at the museum turned me on to some people at the university who had collected a lot of oral interviews with people who worked out at the test site during that time or who had lived downwind of those detonations and had testified about those things. So I did most of my research that way. I read a lot of books ahead of time about that period in our history. And then I just kind of started putting the pieces together, how I wanted to write that.
That's really cool. And it's just, it's fascinating, and I think people can really tell, and I think that's why you have, I mean, amazing reviews. People absolutely love it, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And I mean, you've been all across the country with the book signings and stuff, and I just think you should be so proud of yourself. But it really comes out in the book, and that's why so many people love it and are excited. And you continue the story, and to already have another plan for the next year. I mean, that's great.
Yeah, I was fortunate not only to get some really nice reviews, and that's always really nice for a writer to get that kind of feedback and to know that you've actually entertained people,
Right.
or you've moved them emotionally. And you know, sometimes if people say, "Oh, you made me cry," that's the greatest thing anybody can ever tell me. So, and then as you said, I was fortunate when I got the publishing deal that my publisher offered me a multi-book contract. So they very much want the story of my sheriff, Porter Beck, and Lincoln County to continue. And that's why the second book, which is called Shades of Mercy, is due to come out next July.
And can you tell us a little bit about what that
Yeah,
one's going to be about? Okay,
I can tell you a little bit about that book. So it's not a direct kind of pickup from this book. It's the same major characters in the same place, but it's a different storyline. And it starts with my sheriff who, he suffers from night blindness. So he doesn't see well at night.
Yeah.
And that's a progressive disease.
Yeah.
So his eyes are steadily getting worse. He can see pretty well during the day, but not very well at night at all. Can't really see much of anything. But when he's out on a call one night, it happens to be the night of July 4th, he sees this kind of blurry, strange light go across the sky. And he's praying that whatever it is doesn't land in Lincoln County because they already have a bunch of wildfires happening around the county because of the drought.
Right.
So it turns out, though, it does fall in Lincoln County. And the next day, when he's called out by the Air Force to help him locate this thing that fell out of the sky, he immediately suspects the government's story about what happened. Because he himself used to be in Army intelligence, had a military career that spanned about 20 years, spent time all over the world in very dark places oftentimes. So he knows when he's getting conned, and
Yeah.
he just suspects that this is not right, what they're telling him. And that, as he starts to look for answers, that leads him back to a young girl who's 16 years old who happens to be incarcerated at the Lincoln County Youth Center.
Oh, okay.
And her name is Mercy Vaughn. And she has some special talents. And one that he discovers is that she is probably one of the most brilliant hackers in the world. So while she's helping him solve another problem, he starts to ask her, well, how would you do this? And he's talking about what happened with the thing that fell out of the sky. And that eventually leads them all to a situation that involves not only her, the young hacker, but a Mexican drug cartel and the Chinese government.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's more kind of international intrigue, just like the first book is. It's not just Nevada stuff.
Right.
But that's a little bit about what happens there.
Oh, I wish I could read it already.
You can pre-order it.
Okay, well, there you go. No, that's really cool. See, my mind, when you said something fell out of the sky, I went aliens, but it doesn't sound...
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because the great thing about putting a story or a group of stories up in that area very near what is currently Area 51
right.
and the rest of that very secretive area in the desert is that I have all these opportunities to use things like that. And I very much at some point plan to do something else that involves something very secret or something very alien. So we'll see what happens there.
I would love it. No, that's good. And now they're real. I think a lot of people can finally admit they're real. So, no, I just think that's awesome. And I'm very intrigued by it. And I would love to know more. So I guess I'll have to wait till July. But it'll be very cool. But in the meantime, everyone can read this and catch up with the sheriff.
Yep, catch up with the sheriff.
Yes.
Yep.
That's so cool. And so where can people follow you, keep up to date with everything you're doing?
So you can follow me on any of the social media sites for the most part, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or I guess what is now X.
So confusing.
Yeah, it is. And it's really just under my name, Bruce Borgos. So you can find me pretty easily, and by all means, you can go on BruceBorgos.com, which is my website. Sign up for my newsletter if you want to keep posted on upcoming things, what's happening with my writing career. So, absolutely, stay in touch.
Yes, and the reviews don't lie. Everyone really loves it, and like I said, the fact that you have so much support already is amazing, and you should be so impressed with yourself. And I just think it's going to go bigger and bigger, and I can't wait to see what other series you plan up, and it'll just be so exciting. So
well, thanks so much.
Oh, well, thank you. Oh, yes, and you have an audiobook, too,
Oh,
correct?
yeah, so the audio version of this book is tremendous.
Yes.
It's narrated by a guy named James Babson. He's an actor in Hollywood, and he does a tremendous job, much better than I could have done. And I'm praying that he gets to do the second book as well.
Yeah. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
But guys, because it's hard sometimes to sit down and be able to read the book. But if you have the audio book, you can do stuff around the house and get things done while you listen and be like, oh wait, hold on.
I listened to the audio version, and I had never listened to a book on audio. And I was driving down to Phoenix, and I was listening to it, and I wrote the book, and I'm on the edge of my seat while I'm driving, like, well, what's going to happen next?
That's awesome.
Because he's such a good narrator.
Yeah. That's really cool when you have the people that really can bring the stories to life.
Yeah,
so,
it's really nice to have that option.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bruce, for being on. I am so excited for everything, and I can't wait to see what's on in the future.
Thank you, Corey. I greatly appreciate you having me on.
Oh, absolutely. And I can't wait to have you back next year.
Yeah!
And we have my producer to say something really quick.
I just had a couple of questions, was all.
Sure.
If you don't mind. And I forgot what they were. No, the question involves the audiobooks. Do you as an author have any say-so on who's selected to do the book, or is that completely out of your hands?
I think it's a great question. In some circumstances, authors do have that ability. A lot of self-published authors will create an audio version and narrate it themselves, or they'll get somebody they know to narrate it. In this particular case, I have a publisher for this book, which is Minotaur Books, which is part of Macmillan. And they actually auctioned off the rights, the audio rights for this book and for the next one. And a couple of different companies bid on getting those rights. And one company was selected. It's a company called Recorded Books. So it's a separate company. And because of that, I don't know that I would have had any say in it anyway,
Right.
if Minotaur had simply hired somebody internally to do it. But the Recorded Books does nothing but make these kinds of recordings. So they have a great slate of narrators to do these books, and very good reviews on those narrations. So that's how it's done a lot of times in this kind of case.
I'm a huge audiobook fan. I used to travel about 45 minutes each way to the studio and back, and so I was always listening to audiobooks on the way.
Yeah.
And the reader can make or break that book for you.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that you got somebody that you liked,
Yeah.
because if otherwise it can be kind of flat.
Yeah, and I was a little concerned ahead of time because I didn't know him right away. But he reached out to me before he made the recording just to clarify a few
cool.
questions and said, okay, I'm a little, uncertain about this pronunciation or this person's name, and it was very good. And it turns out that his fiance, I believe it's his fiance, is Ukrainian, and there's some Russian in the book.
Oh, wow.
So he did that dialogue perfectly.
Wow.
Which
Talk
I was
about men.
I was kind of worried about, but
Yeah.
when I listened to it, I thought, oh, he just nailed it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything happens.
Sorry for the interruption, and thank you for taking my question.
Oh no, absolutely.
No, it isn't. Just I never knew that's how audiobooks work. So
Yeah.
that is cool. But I'm glad. I'm glad it did work out well, and it sounds like he really took it seriously and even took charge to reach out to you and make sure everything was correct.
Yeah,
So
he's been
that's really
fabulous,
cool.
and we stay in touch. So
good.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the next one
Yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah.
And the one after. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for being on
Thank you,
again.
Corey.
Please, I'm telling you, go out and support him. And if you're a history nerd like me, if you're not from Nevada, our history with atomic testing and everything is just so unbelievably fascinating. And you get to know more and then have a murder mystery on top of everything. It's just, what a book. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please go check him out and support him. And remember, never give up, always believe, and you'll achieve. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.